Let's talk about the surprise of the year. For you, what was the biggest surprise we saw on Friday nights throughout the entire course of the season?
We touched on a little bit Belmont, I think, just rolling and beating some really good teams in the Northeast State. And I think sticking with the Northeast State, too, Leo being able to come in there, and everybody was eyeing them, and everybody said East Noble and New Haven, and they go ahead and beat both of them throughout the year. So, I got to go Belmont because they won, they share the Northeast State, but, Leo up there, too, because I think much like I think we knew what to expect a little bit at Homestead and Carroll. Leo, we didn't know because they played a lot of teams underneath their class in the ACAC, and they came in and delivered. And we've seen them play Lures tough a couple years ago and stuff like that, so we kind of knew what to expect. But week to week, maybe we thought they'd slip up here and there, but they were tremendous.
Yeah, I have to go with Belmont as well. I mean, at the beginning of the season, we were talking about who's going to win this conference. Can Leo hang? Is it going to be East Noble? New Haven's got a lot of athletic talent on the field. It was kind of like with Dwenger in the SAC. Yeah, they'll be good, but they'll probably be somewhere, behind that first tier of teams. Larry Guest did a fantastic job, and people saw it when they went to go and play at Lures for the sectional championship, and they took control of the game early on with that big Caleb Hankinson run right at the beginning.
First run of the game.
And it was Belmont's game to win from there on out. Yeah. So congratulations to him. I think from an individual player perspective, I was really pleasantly surprised by a couple of younger quarterbacks, and we heard the hype about Andrew McCormick. You just wonder, is he going to put it all together? We saw him play the receiver position. We saw him out everywhere. He was as good as advertised, which I think is nice to see. And also Drew Kazai from Homestead.
Yeah.
You're talking about replacing Logan Ormsby, a 2-year starter. He's in there with Garrett Drysdale. They're not sure who's going to be the starting quarterback heading into the scrimmage, then heading into week one. It was still kind of up in the air, and Drew Kazai takes over and throws for more yards in a season than Zach Terrell ever did. That's pretty darn impressive for a kid who's a junior.
Yeah, and I think we need to remember as media members, anytime Homestead has a open quarterback spot going to the preseason, it's fairly convincing to say that they're going to have a good quarterback. We kind of looked at it, oh my gosh, they have two, maybe they don't have any. That kind of tells you how good Garrett Drysdale is if you couldn't beat Garrett Drysdale out until the last week before the season started. So, yeah, Drew Kazai, a tremendous pick for a good surprise. And go back to Belmont. Belmont's one of those teams I always forget about because when I'm filling out my conference predictions, I put the good teams up top that I think I know. I put the bad teams at the bottom. I'm always like, I'm forgetting a team. It's always Belmont. I'm like, oh, yeah. They're kind of in the middle. So you kind of looked at them every year. They're kind of in that middle. They're going to get a good win. Maybe they have a bad loss, but they're going to be right in the middle.
Maybe wait till the playoffs because they're going to be ready and tested.
Yeah, it's just that team that you kind of forget about. You go, oh, yeah, Belmont. So, but, they had everybody's attention on Friday nights this year for sure.
All right. Anything else that stuck out to you really big as far as this past season goes?
I think, I'm still not sure of the 10-team SAC. I like every week seem to have big games. We always had to decide where we're going to go in the SAC this week. But I miss those non-conference games. I miss not knowing. We had to wait till deep in the postseason to find out how good Snyder was. We had to wait for in the postseason to find out how good Bishop Dwenger was because, how good are these other teams in the area as opposed to these teams out of state or out of the area and the other regions of the state. And I kind of miss that. I miss Snyder having to play Penn. And Cathedral playing Dwenger, and Lures, going all the way to Hartley, Columbus Hartley, and playing. Those gave us a good barometer of how good these teams were and gave the coaches a good barometer of how good they were. So I kind of miss that. I'd really like to see at some point the SAC maybe go to a two-division, 5-team divisions and kind of split up the schedule, give each team a couple non-conference dates to kind of play some teams. I'd really like to see that. I don't think it's going to come anytime soon. I know some coaches wanted it. But not enough to really make it happen. But hopefully in a couple of years I see because, 9 conference games, it's cool. Travel-wise, it's great for all of us. We don't have to go all over to cover games and cuts down on travel budgets. But in terms of seeing some of these teams against the other elite in the state, we don't get to see it till the postseason.
Well, and I think it's beneficial for Fort Wayne football to be seen by and it's mostly the better teams in our area that will schedule some of the better teams in Indianapolis.
Right.
But let's say Bishop Lures plays somewhere in Indianapolis, plays the Cathedral, plays somebody like that. That's beneficial for a guy like Austin Mack, who, because they didn't advance outside of the postseason very deeply this past season, he would get seen. So, for Mr. Football voting, although obviously this year with the concussion and things like that, it would have been nice to see him play in every game. But it gets you a little bit of exposure statewide, whereas, that necessarily doesn't happen until you make a deep run in the playoffs if your team is is fortunate enough to do that.
Yeah, and Friday at State with Snyder, and I don't know how many times I heard it. This quarterback for Snyder,
Right.
wow, Isaac Stiebling, and we saw it every week, and we did, and none of these other people saw it because they're not leaving Allen County to play all year. So you mentioned eyes on your players, get some Mr. Football attention. Isaac Stiebling is going to Eastern Michigan. Nobody knows anywhere else about Isaac Stiebling. Everybody knows about Austin Mack and stuff like that, but there were so many people that were seeing Isaac Stiebling for the first time, and you would like to see them exposed, the kids up here exposed to some of the big-time metro areas around the state and some of those non-conference games.
It would be nice. Thing you're most looking forward to about next season in 2016?
Oof. I mean, that's tough. You want to see. I guess the main thing I want to see is Snyder. You lose Isaac Stiebling, who's your quarterback. A lot of talk about, they have a younger guy coming up. Do they have Mac Hippenhammer play the Wildcat-ish triple option, some sort of thing? Because he's a tremendous athlete, similar to Austin Mack. You wanted to get the ball in his hands. You saw how well that worked, I think, to a certain extent for Lures, but it's capped a little bit because he's obviously not a thrower on a mold of a Noah Wazinski or another quarterback. So what does Snyder do offensively? They got a young kid coming up. They'll surely have somebody to play that, but that stands out to me. Still some tremendous athletes coming back. And Lawrence, I'm talking Snyder here, Lawrence Johnson for Snyder. I think they're going to have a tremendous offseason, blow up as a junior next year, defensive lineman. They got a couple of defensive linemen really solid at Snyder. So I think a couple of those guys. The next crop, we looked at this group, this senior group, as the best group of individual players in the area, maybe of all time. And I think next year we're going to see the next crop of kids are going to start emerging, the next group of talent in this area.
Yeah, it should definitely be worth watching. And, of course, we'll have it covered every week here on Inside the Zone. But for Justin all season long and for me, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next year.